All right. Hi, everybody. I can see some of your faces. Some of you I can't. That's okay. This is fun. It's actually making me a little emo to see a lot of you guys that I haven't seen in a long time because we haven't been together. But that's okay. We're together now. Um, there's not much housekeeping. The only thing that I would recommend is just so people can hear, if you muted your microphone for now, in case like noise happens in the background or something like that, that would be helpful. And then if you have a question during the session, go to the chat function at the bottom and just throw the question into the chat. And it could be about anything within reason. But throw a question in there, and then at the end, I'll pick a few and I'll answer them. It's cool. But here I am at my house. Some of you are in your cars. Some of you at your home as well. Maybe some of you like in studio space. I think that's great. You might hear my kids. Ignore them, but they should be fine. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is not just because of our current social situation. One of the main reasons why I'm doing this is because of the value I see in practice alone. And yes, this is going to be helpful for us as all of us pretty much are stuck in our homes. Those of us that are instrumentalists or we're vocalists, those of us that want to get more involved in music, those of us that are already involved, that we want to improve. This is a great time to practice. This is a great time to make the best use of this time to come out better when we all do get back together and we start playing. In general, I think that practicing is a value to us because I look at it in terms of like, if any of you play sports or have played sports before, like you have your practice with the team. Like even we have that. Like we get together. If you're on the adult team, we get together on Thursday nights and we rehearse before we go and play. We get together on Saturday before junior high and we go play and we sing. And then on Sunday we get together beforehand. Like we all have the practice moment with our team. But you know that it's highly valuable for us to spend the individual time practicing, because then if you don't spend that time on your own, you show up to the team practice and you can't keep up. You can't speak the same language. You're not in as good of shape as everybody else. And I think practicing as a musician is the same as if you're an athlete. Like we're here to practice our muscles that we don't maybe exercise all the time. We're here to practice our mental muscles as well. And the whole point of this is like to really just give you some tools to put in your tool belt. So when you practice, you know what things that you could use or things you can think about and that you could approach when you start it, right? And this has been really helpful for me. I've taken some of these things from musicians that have really helped me in my growth as a musician alone. There's a bass player called Ian Allison. He lives in Minneapolis. If you don't follow him, you should. He's really encouraging. He's posting a lot of great advice of what it's like just to be a musician and how to get better. And it's the best thing about Ian is that it's really encouraging. But some of this is from him that I've like just taken on my own. So that's a shout out to Ian. Really what I want to help us do as a team of musicians and vocalists is to help present something that can help us practice developing a common language. So when we get together, we're all on the same page. We're all speaking the same language together. That when I'm saying something as the MD to the drummer, the vocalist knows that. And what that's really going to help us do is to be more cohesive as a band. And at the end of the day, that's going to help us to be more inspiring. And I think all of our individual efforts when we're practicing, coming together to create something that can convey a feeling to an audience or to an individual is an amazing gift. But like there's not really a way to quantify that. Like when you walk away from a really, really great show, or you walk away from somebody who gave a really great lecture or a speech, you don't talk about the technique of the speaker or of the band. Like I don't watch a show and walk away and go, gosh, man, the drummer's technique was perfect. I might notice parts of it, but what I'm really talking about with my friends or my family is like, gosh, that made me feel so happy. That was really inspiring. The things that we're always describing our feelings rather than they are like really technical terms, right? As musicians, we might be more technical when we're watching other musicians play, but at the end of the day, the people that are presenting that inspiration are those that are more cohesive together as a band, as a community. And you walk away and you go, man, it seems like those people spend a lot of time together. And we do. I think what we have going for us on all of our campuses and at our church is that we've got these pockets of really close friendships that cultivate into a larger community of friendships. And it's really inspiring to me, and it always has been. So we have one foot in the door already with that. Now what we do on a musical level is try to develop this language that we can speak together. And that's kind of the goal here. Let me preface. All I'm going to be presenting, this is going to be really quick. All I'm giving you is like a framework to work with. I'm presenting you like a structured framework for here's a way to practice that I think is a better way to practice. And I could be wrong. It's not the right way. It's just a way that's really helped me. And what you're going to notice, and another reason why I'm doing this is because I found in myself, it was like a year ago, we were recording a song in the studio. We played it. It was more difficult than some songs that we've done in the past. I think it was something for Christmas. And I did it, walked out of the studio, got in my car. And before I started driving away, I realized, I like paused and go, wow, Jake Bombaci 2 years ago couldn't keep up with what just happened. It's like, it was a moment of me recognizing that I actually grew, because I felt like, I'm being honest with myself, that I was spending the time practicing, trying to get better, learning new songs, listening to more music, getting better with my theory and my timing. And it wasn't the next day that I noticed I was getting better. It took time. It takes a couple months. It takes a couple years for you to see the growth within yourself. You know, when an opportunity arises, that you can actually present what you have to offer because you've been practicing. So before I go through the routine, if you just hopped on again, if you have a question, go to the chat at the bottom and post it in the chat. And at the end, I'll pick a few of them and I'll answer them. But this should be fairly quick and harmless. Before I get into it, I want to talk about two things for practicing. Number one is the importance of space. What I mean by that is that I find it highly valuable to create a space for myself in my home or around my home that is inspiring for me to go play music. Like I want to go sit in that space and I actually want to create something. I want to practice. I want to hold my instrument. So what's funny is I was going to do this in the studio at CCV at the Peoria campus. That's where I work at and share that space with a bunch of other people. And that space is cool. It's got a vibe, but I was thinking about what I was going to tell you guys. And one of the things was, hey, create a space in your home. And given the environment we're in, I was like, oh, I've already created a space in my home. So I'm just going to do it here, even if my kids are out there and stuff. Because like you can see, I'll hold it up. I just took a corner of my home. I stole a couple of my wife's house plants and I just created a space. And it makes, like when I see it from the other room, it makes me want to go sit here. So step number one is like, do I want to sit with my instruments? And it's like putting aside the fact that, yes, I like playing the bass. I have a space that feels inspiring to me. So whether it's in your room, reorganize your room. If you're able to find a space within your home, if you're married and there's like an extra corner that you can steal, like I've seen some of you guys on Instagram posting like, Jake Gillespie and I have been texting. He sent me pictures and it's like him with like, he's got his computer screen on a giant TV screen. He's got speakers and the TV's sitting up on the speakers. And it's like, we're making do with what we have. But I think that is really important. Like you want to go sit and make music in that place. Now I'm really OCD about chords being in the right spot. And yes, I like having the plants and stuff because it feels cool. You don't have to go to that level, but maybe try it and see how it feels. You might want to stay here longer because it functions well. You want a good workflow. I've made sure that like the way I have all of my keyboards set up, and when I pick up my bass, I can click one button and then I can start playing and I can hear it. So, and vocalists, I'd say the same thing for you. You might not have a lot of gear, but do you have a space in your home that feels inspiring for you to go sit and to practice and to sing and to write music? All of that matters for everybody. Okay. So importance of space, create a space, vibe it out, take a picture, send it to me. I want to see it. The second thing before the routine is the importance of focus. So when I'm talking about focus, this is why this routine has structure. So it's a 30-minute practice routine split up into 10 minutes, okay? Like, I'm a former teacher, so all of you students, listen closely. Like, I know that if I'm gonna ask you to do some homework, you're not gonna do it as well if I don't give you a structure for how to do it. Like, I'm not gonna tell you everything to write. I'm not gonna tell you everything you should do within that structure, but I need to give you some type of scaffold so you know how to fit the pieces into the right empty slots of the puzzle, if that makes sense, right? So I think that this is like, if people are saying, yeah, Jake, I practice all the time. Like I sat with my guitar yesterday for 2 hours. I play my drums every day for 3 hours. It's like, what are you practicing? It's like, well, I just fiddle around. Don't get me wrong. Fiddling around is fine. Like, that's where happy accidents come out. It's like, oh, I didn't know this chord would sound like this if I did this voicing, or, oh, I learned a cool new riff, or I figured out something new with my pedal board or guitar. It's more about the fact that when you're focusing on something really intentionally, that's where the growth is going to come from. And practice is meant to be challenging. Like, this is where mistakes are made. This is where you're in the gym and you're pushing yourself. You're in the woodshed. Like, you're doing things that are not on your level. And every time you practice, you should always be doing something that is not on your level. Like, you're trying to reach a higher level, because what that means, you're going to find yourself growing, because that challenge is going to pull you with it if you focus. So if you're a person that just sits with your guitar or your drums and you just fiddle around, cool. But like, maybe let's take 30 minutes of really focused energy and time to develop this language and to exercise things we don't usually exercise. A lot of mental muscles. And I think that's really important. And vocalists, this really does apply to you as well. And I'm going to try to give some pieces of feedback for each one that will work for everybody. So again, I'm not going to break down like exercises for every instrument. I'll show you a couple things that can work for everybody. And I might point out some specific things for instruments or vocalists or whatever it is. It's just more of, I'm presenting a structure, and it's simple. Like, I'm not a genius at all. This is a simple structure that I think everybody can follow. On the note of importance of focus, I would recommend this if you are practicing. I have found it very helpful for me to record myself. Singers, this is huge for you. But for all of us, if you're not a person that makes music, like I try to make a lot of music, so I'm always recording myself anyway. So I get to hear my mistakes. I get to hear if I'm rushing or lagging all of the time. But if you're just practicing for the sake of practice, I find that you don't need a fancy, like, DAW or digital audio workstation or anything like that. Just use your phone voice memos or use your video camera. Set it up and record yourself so you can listen to yourself later. I think that would be helpful. It's not like a requirement, obviously. And I don't do it all the time, but I have found that anytime I listen to a recording of myself, I'm really critical. And that's okay to be critical of yourself, because you can, when you can point out what might be a flaw, you can make it better. And usually when you are critiquing yourself, other people aren't noticing the thing you're critiquing. Like, the thing, we always notice what's wrong with us more than other people actually notice. That's even just a life thing. Like, in general, we notice those things. So in music, especially, don't be afraid to record yourself. I'm going to share my screen with you here really quick. And I'm just being a super teacher by just giving you like a simple PowerPoint here, okay? All right, so I talked about the two important things before we practice, but also I want you to think about these things before you practice. Your posture. So a lot of the times when I practice, I'm sitting down. And I think that's okay, drummers, obviously. But like, for all of us, we need to practice good posture when we're sitting with our instrument, even if we're fiddling around, because whatever posture we're practicing, we will start to transfer when we play live, right? Like when I need to mentally think about this. Like, if I'm holding my bass, and if every time I practice, I like slouch back in the chair, and I call this like, it's open face. Like, you guys can barely see the front of the bass. Like, I'm looking right down at it. And it's fine when I'm just hanging, but if I did this all the time when I'm practicing, I'm going to develop bad posture when I actually need to perform or I actually need to play. And it's not the proper way to hold the instrument anyway. Like, think about your posture. Vocalists, when you're practicing, stand up, right? Stand up and practice. It's okay to be sitting down, but if you're going to be singing live, are you standing up most of the time or are you sitting, right? Drummers, there's a lot of posture with, and I'm not talking about technique. I'm just talking about, this is you getting comfortable with your instrument. Like, it should be very obvious when you see me hold my bass that it's like, oh, Jake's held that bass a lot. Like, it seems like he seems like he would know how to play the bass, hopefully, right? I can get a really good indicator of people who don't play their instrument a lot and don't practice a lot purely by how they hold their instrument, how they approach a piano, how they sit at the drum set, how they hold an acoustic guitar. Like, especially if people are going like this when they're trying to play live, it's like, maybe you're brand new, or maybe you don't practice posture. Like, sit up straight. It's really helpful, not just for music, but for your back also, okay? This is kind of the same thing, comfortability. Like, good posture is going to lead to good comfortability. I want you to be comfortable with who you are with your instrument, because I want it to become a part of you. The instrument should become a part of you. Like, you sit down and it's like, even your body movements, like, it sticks with you, right? And it's just all about you being comfortable. You guys might not know who this is. The bass player for the band Rush, his name's Geddy Lee. He said something that it always has stuck in my mind. And what Geddy Lee said was, as you get older, you want to look at the instrument with less mystery. Like, I don't want to look at the neck of my bass, or I don't want to look at the keyboard if I'm a piano player, or the drum set if I'm a drummer or a guitar player, like whatever. As I get older, this instrument should become less mysterious to me. I should be more comfortable with this. And if I've been playing for a while, and if I've really been aspiring to get better, but yet I feel like there's more mystery, it's like, maybe we're not practicing hard enough. This goes back to focus. Like, am I spending intentional moments of focus? Like, I'm just going to spend 10 minutes practicing my scales. I'm just going to spend 10 minutes playing one note at the top of every bar at 70 BPM. Like, 10 minutes of that, like, maybe you need it, maybe you don't, but I don't think we've thought about it a lot. You know, sometimes we're not thinking about it a lot. And practice is always something that's like, yeah, I practice, or I want to practice, I want to get better. It's like, if it's important to you, you will find a way. If it's not important to you, you will find an excuse. So if it's something that's important to you, I'm trying to present to you a way that you can do that. And it's 30 minutes. And I think it's really helpful. The last thing before you practice, warm up, because practice is where we make mistakes. Practice is where we're going to feel discouraged, because I'm challenging myself in the practicing moment. So build some confidence first. Play a song you've played a million times. Sing a song that you love that you heard on the radio. Like, do something that you know really well before you warm up. And maybe you're really pumped about the fact that you learned all your scales because you didn't know them before. So your warm up, because you know your scales now, is, I'm gonna learn my scales, right? So, and a lot of that is, if I go back to focus, you're going to get better at these things if you're focused, because I look at it like reading. Like, I love to read, but I'm not a fast reader. That's because I get to the end of the page and I oftentimes go, I forgot, I don't know anything that I read. Like, sometimes it happens when I drive home. It's like, I don't remember that. That's probably not healthy, but it's like, sometimes the focus part of that, if I get to the end of the page of a book I'm reading, I've practiced myself to go back to the top of the page and reread it if I can't remember. That way the knowledge sticks with me. So if you're doing this, make sure you're focused. And if you find yourself like getting distracted, start over or run that scale again, right? Were you really paying attention, or did you just have good guesses? Okay. So this is easy. 30 minutes, split 30 minutes into 10-minute chunks. 10 minutes, we're going to work on theory. Another 10 minutes, we're going to work on timing. And then the last 10 minutes, we're going to have fun. And don't let fun confuse you. I'm going to tell you why that should still be challenging. We love to have fun, right? But we're starting in this order for a particular reason. So when we start with 10 minutes of theory, I'm starting with theory first because it's the language that we need to, when I talked about language, it's the language we need to start developing. You can't do some of the timing exercises if you don't know theory. And you can have fun in the last 10 minutes, but if you want to challenge yourself with the fun, it's going to help you to know the theory. So theory is me self-proclaiming even that this is my weakest point of being a musician. I grew up, my dad's a really great guitar player, and I grew up like learning songs with my ear. It was when one of the John Mayer albums came out, I was like, oh, I want to learn this bass line, but it wasn't me calling out the notes. It was me just like, what note, where is this note on the neck of my bass? And then I would figure it out, and then I would learn the song. But I couldn't tell you what key it was in. I couldn't tell you anything about the note values. I couldn't tell you anything about the time signature. It was just, I memorized something. And that's one of my strengths is my ear, right? So here's another precursor. Figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and lean on your strengths. You don't have to be the theory expert. And if you're a theory expert, that's great. You don't have to be the best at time. It's all about us just trying to mold ourselves into something that can be more functional, okay? So 10 minutes of theory, let me preface this. You're not doing all of these things in 10 minutes. I'm just spitballing things that you can practice for 10 minutes when you do theory. Cool? So scales, chord tones, time signatures, note values. Let's get some of the basic theory stuff down, right? And some of the stuff is still even difficult for me. Like when I do this exercise, I'm running through scales. And now because I know them well on my bass, first of all, I'm not a piano player. This looks cool to me and I can pad all day long and I like to create programming stuff, but I'm even trying to get better at this. Learning some of the piano knowledge has helped me transfer that to bass actually. But when I'm practicing, I'm like, okay, what is one of my scales on my on the piano or on my bass? The chord tones, what chords, when I play specific notes within the scale, what chords do those create and how do those vary, right? For piano and guitar, this is huge. You guys have so many options of how you can create a feeling by how you voice on the guitar or you voice on the piano. It's really, really cool. Drummers, you're not so worried maybe about scales and chord tones. However, I would say everybody should pay attention to all of this because we want to all be able to speak the same language, right? Drummers, it could be easy to go, I don't need to know my scales, right? Because I don't play pitch, right? I don't need to know my scales or chord tones. But what happens is that maybe I'm the music director and I'm telling the guitar player, the keys player, I'm like, hey, I'm going to play an inversion here. I'm going to play the 3 chord while you guys play the 1. Is that cool? And that doesn't matter to the drummer. But it does, because if you're the drummer and you know what that means, you're going to become way more in tune to the feeling that the song is trying to convey. Like if you know what the 3 chord over the 1 chord is going to feel like as the drummer, and you don't have to play a chord, you're immediately becoming more in tune to the music. And the more in tune to the music we are collectively, the more inspiring we are. And we have a big responsibility on our hands. When people come in, students come into our venues and people come into our adult venues to worship, we are facilitating an environment for people to worship. Let's make that excellent. And when we make it excellent, if we take steps back, let's all try to speak the same language. Drummers, you don't have to know your scales. I'm just saying, let's try a little harder, right? That way we all know. I say that same thing for the bass players. I don't need to know chords. I play 1 note at a time. Bass 101. Don't play a wrong note because you only have to play 1 99% of the time, right? But if I know my chord tones, I know my options on the bass. And I know the coolest thing about bass is that the bass is the attitude of the music. I can immediately change the feeling of the music by changing 1 note, right? So with the bass guitar, if I know more of my music theory, if I do know my chord tones, right? I know how I can convey different feelings. And I think that's really, really important. I love that. Like if I just played, I'm just going to play the same 3. Hopefully you guys can hear that. Okay. I'm going to play the same 3 notes, just this triad, the C, E, and G. And with 1 finger, I'm going to change the feel. And this has to do with the theory thing, because if we have this knowledge and our job is to convey feeling, we want to know what that sounds like, right? Like if I played certain notes and I hear a song and I go, oh, that song, man, that makes me feel like so sad. It's like, can you explain why? If I'm playing these 3 notes, I'll just play this one. Sounds fairly happy, right? But then if I go to this one, I sound a little sad. Got an answer to a question, maybe. All resolved. Make you feel sad again. Make you feel sad again. So that to me is really helpful to know when I do something, I'm conveying a feeling and I can explain it. Here's the next thing that you could work on with theory is your ear training. So this was something that was helpful for me to have my dad as my musical influence growing up because he was really, really good at this, right? With ear training, like again, you start with your scales and chord tones and time signatures and note values and all of that stuff so you can explain and you can create with that knowledge versus guessing. I want to help you guys not guess when we're making music together. So when you have that knowledge, then when we get to our ear training, we need to start learning songs without charts. I remember when my boss, who's the adult music director, Steve Gould, he about, a year and a half ago, stopped putting the charts on PCO, right? And a lot of us were like, wait a second. And it's like, no, this is going to help you. I want you to learn the song. I want you to practice your ear. I want you to transcribe. And that hasn't been an issue for most people. Now with students, that's different. A lot of us are on different levels here. So I don't mind having the charts, but what I want to challenge you students with is when you see the set list for the week, or you hear a new song that you really like, don't go find the chart right away. I want you to try to write the chart on your own. I want you to practice it. I want you to learn it just by using your ear. Transcribing has really helped me in this process. Instead of me just guessing, now that I've worked on some of my theory knowledge, when I start learning a song, I can hear where the notes are and I go, oh, that's a G. Oh, that's the 4 in this chord. And then I can start learning the song with the theory along with it. Transcribing is just you writing out a chart, right? So I wrote half of one just for the sake of time for the song Good to Me, right? So when I transcribe, tell me if you can see that. When I transcribe, like I write like, I for intro, V for verse, pre-chorus, and I'm writing, there's stuff to this that I'll explain a little bit, but Good to Me, the intro is 4, 6, 5, and then it's 5, 3, 4. And I know what all these little symbols mean. And because they do have meaning, this dash means that the note after it is pushed, or sometimes it's a passing chord. So the thing with transcribing is that there's really not one right way to do it. There's some things you should know. I can't write random numbers. Like the number system exists because it's a system. But some of my symbols mean things differently. So when I'm writing the chart out and then when I look at it when I'm playing, it makes a lot of sense versus me like just trying to remember all the things. And I chart a lot in the studio, right? When I go play live, I don't use any charts. And if you need charts playing live, that's totally fine. Use the charts live. I'm saying that as we get older and we grow, we want to get to a point where when we're playing music live, we don't need charts. But sometimes if we're playing some like really complicated music or we're playing a lot of songs, it's helpful to have something small maybe that you could put at your feet or at the foot of the piano or by your amp that you could reference, that you could understand. So I think ear training, learn songs without charts, and transcribe. Cool. The last thing is going to be, and this is something that I don't really practice anymore because I know it, but for you, this could be something you start spending 10 minutes practicing, is the national number system. A lot of musicians speak in this language with the numbers. So if I told you to play, 4, 6, 5 in the key of D, do you know what those are, right? So it's really important for us to speak this language because we speak it on our teams a lot of the times. I'm not saying get away from knowing notes and chords, like know what a G major chord or, a B diminished 7 chord is, like use that language, but it's much easier collectively as a whole when we're making music together to use the number system. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit to that I'm not going to go into like a lot of detail with, but let me just do a quick breakdown. So the national number system, and also let me preface, you could use the internet is full of this stuff. Go to YouTube, national number system, and you will find a lot of really great resources. Go to YouTube, go to the internet and type in scales, right? What is my C minor scale? What are chord tones? What are time? Like you'll find a bunch of stuff. You just have to be willing to spend the time to find it. But natural number system, I want us as a student team to start getting a lot better at this, because I thought when I heard people spouting off numbers, like you looked at my chart and maybe you don't know the number system. And when I first encountered that, I thought it was an unattainable level of music theory. I was like, geez, you guys are so smart. And I realized it's actually very, very easy to use. And it's so helpful. I became a better musician when I started using it, because I can transfer it. Like I used to get really stressed out if I showed up on a weekend or the day before and I get a text and somebody says, hey, can we change the key? I want to change it from C to D. I think I can want to do it higher. And it'd be like, oh my gosh, I have to relearn the whole song. But knowing the natural number system, I don't. I just transfer it over because it's the same arrangement. So if I take the C major scale, right? C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We'll just use this as an example, keep it simple. Sometimes there's more to this with like major and minor stuff, but let's just take the C major scale. We're gonna play a song in the key of C. All we're doing with the number system is we're assigning a number to each note, and it goes in ascending order. This never changes for any key. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F4, G5, A6, B is 7. So if I said, hey, the progression of the song goes 4, 6, 5, I go, oh, key of C, 4, 6, 5, F, A, G, which is good to me, right? 3, 4, right? So then I know that good to me is actually, so this is funny. Good to me is actually in D. So let's just pretend we're playing good to me in C, and I show up on the weekend and I'm the bass player and I've worked really hard to learn the song. And the vocalist is like, can we sing it in the original key? Actually, I don't want to sing it in C. And then I go, oh, cool. Because the progression doesn't change. In C, 4, 6, 5 is this. And then in D, 4, 6, 5 is G, B, A, and then 3, 4. It works. It never changes. So even if you're playing in the key of D, you assign the same numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, right? So spend 10 minutes going through your scales and assigning the numbers. And then when you're practicing music, try to speak in that language. And now that's really the language that I speak in all the time if I'm learning a new song, or if I'm playing on the weekend, or for writing stuff. So for theory, you could add and take away whatever you want with this. But 10 minutes of theory, it's super, super important. It's the language that we want to develop, and that we need to develop together. Vocalists, this really applies to you as well. Like, because I think you can become more in tune to where your voice sits within specific keys. If you know some of your theories and you know your scales, and if you can speak this language, like you are a leader on stage. Like just because there's the music director, like the rule of thumb is that the music director is like driving the ship, but you're the captain. Like if you're a worship leader, you're the captain of the ship. And so if you have an idea because of you leading the band, and you think that us going about playing a certain progression in a moment would serve the song better, call it out. But if you don't know how to do that and you're like, gosh, I feel like if we did this would make this feel better, but I don't know how to explain it. It's like, learn this stuff and it'll really help you, especially if you're communicating with your bands. Cool. That's theory. 10 minutes of timing. So timing, you always want to use a metronome when you're practicing timing. I think practice in general, you should always have a metronome. Don't trust your internal clock. We are not machines, right? And what I'm going to explain here for all the vocalists watching, some of these exercises really apply to instrumentalists, but here's what I will say about timing. I find myself often, if I really love a song, some of my favorite songs, I find myself often really, like when I'm saying, gosh, that song has such a great pocket. It's not always because I'm just not always listening to bass and drums, even though I love the bass and the drums. That is sometimes the case, but I find myself more often being really impressed with the pocket of the vocal. Like some songs that like just slam, the vocalist has an understanding of the pocket. They have really good time feel, right? And that's what I want to emphasize also with timing. This is really important, but you getting good at time doesn't automatically mean you have good feel. Time and feel are different things. And there are ways to improve in both, but sometimes this is just more of a technical thing with timing, right? I'm going to give you guys some resources and some feedback at the end that can help with the feel aspect, but there are a lot of people that I've heard play and music that I've listened to that it's like timing is almost perfect. I don't feel much from it, the music though, right? It's same thing with technique. I don't really care about technique that much. Like there's some of the best musicians in the game don't have the best technique, but they have really good feel and they have this basic knowledge, right? They could speak this language really well. Okay, use a metronome, pick something mid-tempo. I use this app called Pro Metronome. There are a bunch of apps with metronomes on them, but I like this one because I can change the time signatures really easily. I can change the subdivisions, and I really like this little wheel. It's fun for me to rotate, and it makes it easy. So pick something mid-tempo, like 80 to 100 or like 75, and you'll put on the click, and you're going to pick one note and play at the top of every bar. So we'll do this really quick. So I picked just 75, which feels really slow to me. And all I'm gonna do, everybody can do this too. This is really helpful for basses as well. I'm gonna pick one note and play at the top of every bar. 3, 4. Let's turn my volume on first. Actually, I don't think it's on. Stand by. I want you guys to hear it because it sounds really cool. I'm still here. Well, I'm just going to do it on the piano, so I don't waste your time. But that makes me sad. I don't know why it's on. So I'll pick at the top of every bar, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just trying to hit the center of the target. There's a little head. So I want you to imagine this. Corey Wong did a masterclass at our church, and he said something about this exercise I thought was really helpful. I want you to imagine that you are working at a brick factory, and your job is that you have a stamp with the company name on it, and there's bricks coming by you at that speed. Maybe they're coming by at the top of every bar, right? It's like brick, 2, 3, 4, a brick comes by. Your job, it's on a conveyor belt, so it's a machine. It's perfectly placing it 74 beats per minute or at the top of all of those bars right in front of you. And your job is to place the stamp right in the center of that brick, right? So if I'm playing it, here comes a brick, right? Oh, I was a little bit ahead. So here's the goal with timing. I'm trying to hit the center of the target, but what I'm really trying to do is appropriately adjust. If I feel like I was a little ahead, if the stamp is on the front end of the brick, my goal for the next one is to what? Is to then veer it back towards the center. Because if I'm like, oh, that's where the stamp went, it's on the front end of the brick, I just need to stay there, then that means I'm rushing the entire time. And if it's on the back end, that means I am behind the entire time. And then I have no bricks that have anything anywhere close to the center. So timing is, yes, about trying to hit the center of the target, but it is also about adjustment and feel, right? And timing is everybody's job. Timing is everybody's job in the band. Vocalists, drummers, keys players, bass players, guitar players, everybody. It's everybody's job. So I think that is just a helpful exercise. You could also alternate. This is really good for bass players and guitar players and drummers. Alternate between quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes. Now, pause. If I'm saying quarters, eighths, and 16ths, and you are like confused on what that is, that's why we do the theory exercise first. That's why we focus on theory first, so we can speak the language, so we know what those are. They're note values, right? And I know what they feel like and what they sound like. Let me stand by for 2 seconds. I really want my bass to work. I don't know why it's not working. Even though I talked about the importance of space and having a good workflow, and it's not working, this is probably not making you trust me very much. Oh, it was the volume button. Imagine that. All All right, can you guys hear that? Okay. So what you can do now is that if I have my instrument that works, and if I pick my BPM, I'm going to alternate between quarters, eighths, and sixteenths. You can do this on the piano too, especially with quarters and eighth notes. Guitar players, you can do this. Drummers, you have a ton of options to practice this, right? You could be playing quarter notes on the hi-hat is what you're focusing on, and you're just playing a simple groove with like the beat, the kick drums on 1 and 3, snares on 2 and 4, but you're focusing as the click is going, just playing quarter notes on the hi-hat, and then you can alternate to the eighth notes, which would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and maybe the hats are all you're focusing on, because drummers, for you, the dexterity is really, really important. So you've got way more muscles to work on for the timing exercises, right? You got to focus on your kick drum, on the snare, the hi-hat, and guess what? All three of those have a different role on the drum set. So do all of your cymbals, and so do all of your toms, right? They serve different purposes. So this is a really good exercise for you. But if you're like bass player, guitar player, keys player, I'll just play staccato, and then I'll alternate at the end of every one. So then I'll go eighth notes. Sixteenths. And if you want to feel like a real, like you're horrible, slow it down to like 50 BPM. Like I think starting slow is almost more difficult than starting off at a fast BPM. You want to make sure, because you're going to hear how much you rush. And even there, me giving you the example, this is a good exercise, because when I went from 16th notes to eighth notes, I started rushing on my eighth notes, because the 16th notes feel faster, but it's not a faster BPM. It's just I'm playing more notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a, instead of me, like even just now me saying that is like, oh, that's why this is important, because I want the feeling to make sense to me, that when I play different note values, that doesn't mean that the BPM changes. And this is really important for us playing together on the weekends, because if we're thinking about this stuff and if we're practicing this stuff, we can all, like, timing can really make or break a band, you guys. Like, even just an acoustic guitar player with bad timing can really be a bummer. So if you're an acoustic guitar player, you're a worship leader, the timing exercise is really important for you, because the acoustic guitar is basically like a tambourine with pitch, right? It creates another accent. So I think it's really important for you to practice also. Keys players, if the worship leaders haven't sent it already, I'll have them send it again. Mike Rodriguez on our adult team, he's a piano player. He recorded 2 timing exercise videos for you guys that are, he plays piano, I don't. He explains it really well. I think it's really helpful. So we'll make sure that you get that as well. But this is just a couple examples of things that you can do. And what I like about it is that you can vary it up however you want, right? Pick a scale and play it in time. Pick a progression, pick a 4-6-5 progression and try to play it in time, alternating between note values. Changing time signatures can be helpful too. Know what it feels like to play in 3/4 versus 6/8, right? Know what 5/4 feels like and things of that nature. My son's awake, if you can hear him, he's crying. This rhythm exercise has been really helpful for me. And I think, again, this can go for all instrumentalists. And maybe this is maybe I can record a video and send it to you guys, have the worship leader send it to you, or just post it in a link somewhere of how this rhythm exercise works. I won't explain it too long, but basically what you're going to do is, now that we've practiced all the note values with the quarter notes and eighth notes and sixteenths, this exercise has really helped me to stop guessing where notes are supposed to be placed. So what that means is that I remember being in a studio session one time, and again, my boss, Steve, we were recording a song, and he was playing a pretty intricate kick pattern for a song. And he noticed me staring at his foot, because I didn't know where the notes were. I was just like, he's like, it's on the 4 and the E of 1. And I'm like, cool, but we're playing the song really fast, so I'm just going to try to guess. And he stopped the session and was like, you're still guessing. And he did it. He went really slow with me, and it was really embarrassing, and everybody's watching it, but it was really helpful. Like that moment for me was like, oh, I need to pay more attention to this stuff. So this exercise helps you do that. If and this is especially if I'm the MD or the worship leader's telling you, whoever's music directing, and if they were to say, hey, drummer, bass player, can you play the kick drum notes with the drummer in that section? It's on the E of 3, and then on the and of 4. And you're, as a bass player, you're like, yeah, sure. And then you're guessing. Let's not guess. This rhythm exercise helps with that. So what you do is that you're going to play the top note of each bar. And then when the bar comes back around, you're going to play the next note. And I'm just going to start with quarters. 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sense? So I'm just going in order, and it's really helping me understand where these notes are placed. Now it gets more difficult if I do eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So now I'm playing beat 1, then I'm playing the and of 1 when it comes back around, so on and so forth. Then you get to the 16th notes, and I'll speed it up a little bit. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E. See what I mean? So you go in that order. Man, it's really hard, especially when you get to the 16th note values. So you want to make sure this is helping you stop guessing. And I think one of the really helpful ways to do this, to be fully honest, like you can do it like that or whatever instrument you're playing. But everybody can do it in the car. Like you're listening to a song on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, and you notice that like there's an unusual note somewhere, like the kick drum note. Like what's making me feel that way? Count it out as you're listening and try to figure it out, right? Like, oh, the snare's hitting on the E of 2. Very interesting. I do that all the time. I'm sitting in my car and I'm like listening to a song that just came out, and it's like, whoa, that snare is definitely not on the usual beat that it is. And I'll sit there and go 1E and a 2E and a 3E. And I'm saying it out loud, and people driving by probably think I'm weird because I'm like tapping the top, trying to figure it out when it is. But the more that I did that, the more that I start to understand the feeling of what a note played on the E of 2 sounds like. It's like knowing what a 6 chord sounds like. A 6 chord should sound and make me feel a little sad. A note played, if it's a snare hit played on the E of 2, right, should make me adjust a little bit because it's not right on beat 2, because that's where normally we would hear things like that. So I hope the timing exercise makes sense. Rhythm exercise, maybe I can make a more detailed video about that. If you have more questions, you can ask me, but that's been really helpful. I'm still working on it, especially when you get to like, triplet 16th notes, trying to play those subsequently. And this goes back to focus, you guys, because I find myself getting distracted when I'm doing the exercise because I'm worried about what the next note is. And then I'm not being intentional about what I'm supposed to do. I'm playing defense the whole time. Now, in this setting, me practicing, it's all defensive playing. It's just me. I'm struggling. Like I'm trying to work up to something. I'm trying to challenge myself, but it is a struggle. But when we get to the gig, when we get to church on the weekend, when we're in rehearsal, we want to be able to develop these exercises well enough that we aren't guessing and that we aren't playing defensively. Play offensively as much as you possibly can. It shows how prepared you are, like across the board, vocalists to drummers and keys players and guitar players, all that stuff. All right. First 2 are super important. The third is super important as well, but I want to explain it. I put 10 minutes of fun last because this always turns into like 30 minutes for me. Like it makes my practice longer. But again, it's my focused practice. It's not me fiddling around on my bass or on my synth or something. It's like I'm still being intentional. So have fun, but make it challenging. You heard that new ripping guitar solo in, a song that came out, right? And you're like, that's cool. I want to play that. Now's the time to try to learn it. Because what you're doing when you're learning something, you want to learn this drum fill, right? When you're learning something, you have to go back to your theory and timing exercises. If you've done those, then you learning a challenging song becomes a lot easier for you and you're not guessing like 14-year-old Jake was trying to learn a Pino Palladino line, which was good for me to do at that age, but I'm guessing the entire time, right? So when you do the other exercises, you get here, I want you guys to really do this because this is what's inspiring for me. If I have to be honest with this whole practice routine thing, the one that I enjoy the most, the one that's actually helped develop me as a musician, was learning other people's music. It was me hearing a song and liking the bass part and sitting down and learning the bass part. And then I have learned that song and I've learned that bass part. That's to me, that's always been inspiring. And I found myself taking those songs that I've learned and people that I'm listening to, and they've become a part of my voice also. Learn a new song or learn a new part, create new sounds. This is the time to know your gear. Guitar players, sit down and mess around with your pedals. Okay. You got a new pedal. Here's the thing with pedals, bass players, guitar players, maybe keys players. A lot of times people buy pedals and they don't ever read the instruction manual for how the knobs work. They just sit and play with the knobs. Like if you're interested in playing synth stuff like this guy, like know what the job of the knobs on your pedals do. How do they function, right? This is a time to know your gear, to create new sounds, things of that nature. And again, like I said, this is what helps me grow a lot in this one. And here's a kind of an interesting suggestion. I want you to post more stuff, especially now. Like it's been really inspiring to watch people in this mode that we're in socially take the time to learn new things and to post them on social media. And I suggest that because I think it's an important tool. I want to create more when I watch other people post things. Like the video that you guys posted of all of you vocalists singing one of the songs. Like that's so cool. That stuff pumps me up. Watching Jake Gillespie learn a bass part and post it on Instagram is really inspiring also. It really is. Like, here's the thing with posting. If you're going to post something, I bet you're going to try to make it as perfect as you can because we care about what people are watching. So don't you think that if I'm going to challenge myself to post, something, that I'm going to spend the time making it as good as I can, meaning I'm actually getting better, right? If I want to, and then I'm getting better at the recording process and I'm getting better at my posture because I don't want to look like a slouch when I'm posting it. I think you guys should post more, like be creative in this time. I think it's helped me the more that I think about, man, I heard that bass part. I think it's really cool. I think I'm going to post it because I'm inspired by it. Maybe inspire other people, but I better make sure I get it right. Like I need to get it right because then that'll be really embarrassing. It's going to help you actually to improve as you move on. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. If you don't have my email or like the way to contact me, email or Instagram, you can write that down really quick. I'll answer any question. It's the coolest thing about my job when I started was going around to campuses to meet a lot of people that I didn't get to meet because I was always playing. So in the times that I have to go playing, me not being able to do that right now is, for me with my job, the biggest bummer because it's amazing to see how far stretch and how wide our church is. I want to give each and every one of you watching, groups of you that are in, and if you have questions, go ahead and start typing them in. But each instrumentalist and vocalist, just a piece of feedback and encouragement, if I will, and a resource for you. Bass players, I really want you, and everybody pay attention to this because this is about us speaking the same language. Bass players, I really want you to focus on rhythm and on tone. I have to be honest with you. I think that one of the reasons why I've gotten the opportunities in the past that I have gotten, like most of the comments are about my tone. I have spent a lot of time working on my bass tone. I love bass pedals and I love the way some of my favorite bass players, how their tone comes across in tracks and how it's mixed. That's the part that I nerd out about. I don't nerd out about scales, right? If you nerd out about scales, good for you. The joke's on me. I need to nerd out about that more. I'm saying that I want you to work on tone because you could be the sickest bass player, but nothing is more deflating than a bass player coming into play and the tone is such a bummer because the bass is the air, the hot air that fills the balloon. And if you come in with a tone that doesn't hit you right here, the balloon's just going to fall. Like it's going to deflate. So working on tone is important, and working on rhythm. Your job and your relationship with timing, because bass players, you play one note at a time, 99% of the time. And the bass isn't a sustaining instrument. Like if I played this note on the piano and I just hit the sustain pedal, it'll sustain forever. The bass doesn't do that. Like I have to re-hit a note for it to do it. So the goal with bass players is, think about this. Every time you play a note, you're placing that note in the rhythm. So the more you think about rhythm, the more intentional you can be about when you're playing parts and things like that. And if you ever have any questions, you hit me up. Check out Scott's Bass Lessons. His Instagram and YouTube are really helpful. Guitar players, my encouragement to you guys is I want you to find your voice. The guitar has such an amazing ability to speak. I think the guitar really, to me, is much like a vocalist. Like it mimics the vocal cords. Like I want you to think melodically when you're practicing, and I want you to find music that's inspiring from guitar players that speaks that way. Like the guitar has a voice. It sounds like a vocalist when it's singing. You can create space. You're playing lead lines. You're such a present part of the mix, right? And I think it's really inspiring. So guitar players, focus on finding your voice and thinking melodically and being creative. Cool. Reach out to guys like Joey Sardella and Fletcher Malloy, who are on our teams that both play adults and students. Those guys are always willing to spend time answering questions about guitar stuff. Drummers, I think by far, more than any member of any band, the drummer is the leader of the band. You have authority with your instrument, but you can lack authority if you're playing defensively. So drummers, I really want you to practice so you can play with confidence. A confident drummer really drives the band, really moves the band forward. Again, you could have the best bass player, keys player, guitar player. You could have the best singer in the world. And if the drummer shows up and is timid, quiet, unfamiliar, the band falls apart. Like, so drummers, I want you to practice so you can play with authority, play with confidence, because I think the drummer is the leader of the band, and I have yet to be proven otherwise. Keys players, I want you to work on being creative with ways to fill space. Your job is so unique in that, like, guitar players can fill space too, but guitar players sit at a specific part of the frequency. So keys players, you have that frequency in the upper register, but you also have or bass player's register at the top, at the bottom end. Like, you have an ability to create beautiful space. And what I want you guys to all focus on is that for keys players, you provide a lot of the emotion of the music. I think anybody can provide emotion, but I think you have so many options to provide emotion. And I want keys players if you're on our student team and you play keys, I want you to start thinking about, like, yes, learn the piano stuff, know this really well, be familiar, but I want you to start listening to music. Like, some of my favorite people that you could call keys players are actually programmers. Like, they get into the synth world. They use plugins and they create music. And like, I really am inspired by a lot of that stuff, right? Like, there's an artist named John Hopkins. If you haven't heard of him, John Hopkins is a classical piano player. But if you listen to his music, you only hear 1 or 2 songs on each album where he's actually playing piano. The rest of it's programming and creative stuff. So think about that. Think about maybe trying to get into the software world. I think that would be helpful, because a lot of our music at CCB is driven by that. For keys players, I would love to take things out of the tracks. I don't want to leave things in the tracks. I would love for you to fill that space so I can take them out. Finally, vocalist. It is the band's job to support you. You are at the forefront of leading these songs. I'm always telling band members to do this. Like, it's our job to support you. So I think vocalists, my encouragement to you is work even harder to be more prepared than the band members. Know the lyrics, do your warm-ups, come in with, like, you have such an important job, because it's not all these technical things. It's also your persona and how you carry yourself, right? Spend that time with yourself, developing that part of you, not just your vocal things, because the band is there to support you. And we want you to be in the best state of mind possible. So again, when we come together to present something, it's inspiring and it facilitates the moments that we need to. I'm going to send I'll send the worship leaders a list of songs for each instrument. It's just like a screenshot. I put like 8 songs for every instrument that has the player who played on it, the song, and the artist. And then I put somebody you should follow on social media for each instrument also. These songs are not the best ones for each instrument. They're completely random. It's a wide range of genres. They're ones that are trying to push some of you to maybe get out of your box to listen to some other music. And some of it's really familiar music that you will know. I didn't make one for vocalist, but I guarantee if you reach out to Donna Gillespie, she will make you a list of songs for vocalists with who's singing and the artist and things of that nature. All right, that's all I have for that. I am going to try and answer some questions in the chat. So I'll open them up. I'll pick a couple. We're right at about an hour when I started, so I'll answer a couple questions and then we'll wrap up with time. I'm starting to learn guitar, would like to connect with people to learn more and practice together. Would any of the CCV guitar players be interested? We go to Peoria campus. We could Zoom also. The person that is always, to me, that is always willing to spend time is Joey Sardella. I would reach out to Joey Sardella. He will help with anything. He will jam with you. He will just simply talk to you, right? So Joey Sardella and I've known Joey for a really long time, and I can't think of another musician in our community who's improved more from when I knew him in high school until now. Joey's absolutely killing it. And it's because he's so passionate. Joey would be the person I would try to reach out to talk about guitar. Also, Jason Richard used to live here. He's played on all of our CCV records. If you send Jason an Instagram, he will answer your question. Jason he saw that I was doing a masterclass and he wants to do one for you for guitar players. So he's in it. So I would reach out to Jason Richard and Joey Sardella. Those are great dudes for that kind of stuff. The slides, I will find a way to consolidate like in a PDF, and I'll post them and send them to you guys so you can have some of that if you weren't taking notes or anything like that. I am recording the session that I can send to people. Sam, hi Sam. What is the best way to get the best tone out of a bass? Also, which pedals can help with that tone? An old jazz bass player, his name's Ray Brown. He has an online masterclass. It's like really grainy and the audio quality is bad, but he said something that always meant a lot to me. And he said, the most important thing you can do with this instrument, and he's playing an upright bass, but he literally goes, here, it's an upright bass now. He says, the most important thing you can do with this instrument is, and he just plucked the string and he said, get a good tone. So he's played with everybody, and he's like a jazz bass player, and he's playing one note at a time saying, get a good tone. And what he's talking about is like, we're not plugging it in or anything. I think tone starts with our comfort, and this can apply to everybody, but especially for bass players, tone comes from with your comfortability with the instrument, your posture, how you attack the strings. If you're using a pick, what side of the pick, what depth of the pick? Is it the grainy side where you can get some dirt and some grit? Or is it like a thin pick where you can get a plucky sound? How you position your hand like on the bass itself. Spend more time with the instrument without plugging it in, and I think that would be really, really helpful. Pedals that help with that. I think bass players, if I were to recommend a pedal board for all bass players, 3 pedals: a tuner, a DI, a direct box, and an overdrive pedal. So the DI has become important to me because there's been specific DIs built for bass that really help serve the instrument. For a long time, like some gear made for bass, it took a while for it to find the appropriate way to let that instrument speak. I would recommend the Aguilar Tone Hammer is affordable. It gives you a drive option, so then you have your overdrive within one pedal, and it gives you some EQ. I think it's like $250. I mean, the best bass pedal in the world right now is the Noble, but it's $1,000. So now might not be the most appropriate time, or maybe it is. Maybe you just go for it. I don't know. My wife and I are talking about getting a dog. Crazy things are happening over here. We'll see. Hopefully that answers your question, Sam. Sid, what song/part did you practice today during your 10 minutes of fun but challenging? One of my favorite bass players is named Sean Hurley. He has an opening bass solo. He plays for Adina Menzel. Is that how you say her name? and it's like an old Aretha Franklin tune called Rock Steady, and he's just ripping the solo. And I'm not a shredder. I don't shred. Like, I don't have those skills. I try, I practice, but I'm learning that solo. It's a minute long. I'm about 30 seconds in. It's taken me about 10 of my practice sessions to get 30 seconds in, because it's really intricate, because I'm trying to understand what he's doing too. But it's really cool. Idina Menzel, Rock Steady. Let's have some fun. This is Sean Hurley on the bass, is what she says, and he rips it. It's really, really cool. Which is your favorite bass? My dad bought me this one. It's a 1970 P bass, and the neck on the P bass is really smooth. So it's really special to me. My cousin used to own it. So it's got a family thing, and it's a real vintage bass. So I love it. The one I play the most though is this one, the Mustang. My favorite bass player, his name's Justin Meldell Johnson. This is his signature bass. And it just, every time I record something with anybody, there's comments on this bass. Like, it's small. It looks like it's like the scale of a guitar, but it just has such a huge body to it when it comes through. So I think the Mustang I play the most, P bass, is probably my favorite. What is the metronome app you suggested? It is called Pro Metronome. Pro Metronome is the app. There's only a couple more here on the thread. I'll finish them and then we'll wrap. Is that cool? Pro Metronome is what he said, I think. You're right. Yep, Pro Metronome. That's true. How to avoid burnout when getting serious about music? That's a really good question, Noel. I think this is why practice is important. Like, I think what Noel's trying to say is, like, how do you avoid getting burnt out? Like, how do I stay inspired when I'm playing music? How do I stay encouraged, like, when I'm getting better, especially when I'm not getting gigs? And this is a really great example right now. Like, a lot of us that had things lined up to play, even if we were playing on the weekend or if we had gigs out of town or whatever, all that stopped, right? So this is a great example of how not to get burned out. It really focuses you to pay attention to why you're doing this in the first place. Are we playing music for the opportunities? Like, I want to play music because I want to be on stage. I want to play music because I think worship is important. Those aren't bad reasons, but what does music mean to you? Like, how does it make you feel? And do you enjoy conveying that feeling and working out the process of conveying that feeling? And I think if you do self-reflection to why you are doing the thing that you are doing, you can figure out how intentional you are being or how not intentional you're being with that thing. And the best example I have of this, and this applies to music because I feel the same way, I think the best musicians, the most inspiring musicians, the ones that get the opportunities, the ones that grow, are the ones that love the process. Like, they love the process. If you talk to any pro musician, like, other than like maybe those that are constantly on tour with like the top artists in the world, like a Lady Gaga or Katy Perry or something, like, a lot of pro musicians, they go on stints. Like, they'll go on the road for a while and then they're at home for a long time. And then they do gigs here and there. And when they're on the road, they do a gig one night, every night throughout that. Like, they're not actually playing music. They're not actually playing the gig all day, every day. So within that time, what some of these musicians are doing is that they're practicing, they're getting better, they're networking, they're reaching out. They love the process of it. And also, you have to love this process, practicing, like being involved. Like, I don't like that I can't play Sean Hurley's bass solo right away. It frustrates me. I wish I was better, right? But I am me. I'll end with this. All of us are on our own journeys. I've mentioned Steve a lot. He's like one of my closest friends in the world. I love him so much. He's got a friend named Chris Morrissey, who's like the top jazz bass player ever. Like he's like the LeBron James of jazz bass playing right now. And he was telling me a story about Chris, and I told Steve, man, I was really discouraged. And I was like, gosh, dang it, Steve. Like, I feel like I'm late in getting serious about music. I'm 30. I didn't start getting serious about music until I was about maybe 23. The last 6 to 7 years is when I was like, I got to get better at this. This is what I want to do. Like, I really love this. And I told Steve, I was like, I wish I got started earlier. I wish I took it seriously when I was 12. I'd be so much better now. And the point of that was, Steve said, yeah, but you're not Chris. Like, we are all on our own journeys. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how young you are. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Embrace the journey that you're on. And if it's something you care about, work hard to improve. And the thing that I struggle with is I always found myself being worried about the opportunities I would get. Am I just getting better at music because I want the opportunities? I want to play music live, but that wasn't in my mind. It wasn't, I love playing music live. It was like, I want to be seen. I want to be the guy on the Instagram post. I want to be the person on the record. And it became so much less about the actual music and it became all about myself. And it is about you because you're on your journey, but let's shift our mindset. Like, let's make this about the joy of music. And I promise you, you will find moments, you will get burnt out at times. And it's important just to get right back on the bike. Keep riding, because the more that you ride your bike, the more that you're never going to forget. And you're going to find yourself one day, I promise, if you stick with this, you'll find yourself one day being really proud of yourself for having invested the time in practicing and for caring about it, because you're going to do something that you never thought you could do. I didn't know I could play, like playing on stage. Oh my gosh. Some of you haven't even played on stage yet, or you haven't sang on stage, or maybe you've done it a couple times and you want to do it more. And there's things that you got to work on. You got to get better on. You will find yourself, you stick with it, getting on stage and nailing it. And you're going to be like, wow, I can do this. Last piece of advice, take criticism and take it with a grain of salt and don't take it personal. You will know when criticism is personal. Like it will be obvious to you. But if somebody comes to you and is saying like, hey, and we all try to help each other with this, those of us that are leaders. And if they say, hey, great job tonight. Like, I thought you killed that song sounded really good. I want you to work on these things. I want you to work on it. Maybe it's a stage presence thing if you're singing, or if it's a tone thing for a bass player, being, hey, let's work on your tone. Have you talked to Jake Bombaci yet? He'll really help you with this. Don't take that stuff personally, you guys. Like, we're all in this together. Like criticism should be aplenty. It should be given delicately, right? But again, you'll know when it's personal. And if it's personal, all you do is push it away. But what we do oftentimes when we get criticism is we push the criticism away. And it's like, oh man, I'm just trying to help you. Like, all of this is about us helping each other. Like, I will get people who are like, man, great masterclass. Here's the feedback. And it's like, yeah, let me have it. So the next time that I go give something, it's even better. Right. That's all I have. I hope all that helps, makes sense. Man, I want to do this more with you guys. Like what I mean by this is, I could do another thing like this, and it's about, I don't know. I thought if I ever did a different master class, it would be about how to find your voice. I get asked that question a lot. How do you find your voice? Like, when it sounds like John Mayer playing, why does it sound like John Mayer? When it sounds like this person singing, it just has that feeling. It sounds like them. Maybe a couple of us can get together and create a master class together about finding our voice, how to make what I'm playing and what I'm singing sound like me. But I want to hear from some of the other leaders here too. Like, this is really cool. I've got the gallery view open and I can just see everybody, and it's super cool to see your faces. And I'm here with you with all this stuff, and I love you guys, and make some really good lemonade out of some really bad lemons right now, and just spend the time, get better, reach out to each other, reach out to me. I'm here to help you always. Love you all dearly. And it was really good to kind of see you in a way. I'm going to peace out.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.